It's a presentation of Fox Sports.
We are Baltimore. We are St. Louis.
It was a crazy evening last night around Major League Baseball. Tempers fly down in Arlington between Texas and Seattle. Off to Tampa Bay, where a new rule decides a game. The Utley rule on a slide play at second. Meanwhile, here in Pittsburgh, the 11th inning, Jordy Mercer with a walk-off base hit. This would score Gregory Polanco. It sets the scene for tonight. Game number 3 from PNC Park. The Pirates looking for a sweep against the Cardinals. Baseball comes your way next.
This is St. Louis Cardinals baseball, and tonight from PNC Park, again a chilly evening. Game number 3 between the St. Louis Cardinals and the Pittsburgh Pirates. Adding to the crazy atmosphere of baseball last night, a couple of rookies pick up their first ever Major League hits. That was his first ever Major League at bat, Aledmys Diaz. Later in the game as a pinch hitter, Jeremy Hazelbaker. A bloop double down the left field line. Hazelbaker is in the lineup tonight. He'll play center field. And along with Jim Hayes and Al Raboski, I'm Dan McLaughlin. Let's get some normalcy. Let's see some hitting, lack of strikeouts, and we'll also see the season debut, Cardinal debut of right-hander Mike Leake.
Yeah, Mike Leake signed the largest free agent contract for a pitcher in Cardinal history, and he knows an awful lot about the Central Division. Matter of fact, this will be his 25th start against the Pirates tonight, and he's found a lot of success against them with very good athlete, a good hitting pitcher, and we expect his debut to be outstanding.
Cardinals trying to get the bats rolling. It starts with their leadoff man, Matt Carpenter. He's in the lineup this evening. It's the Cards. It's the Pirates. It's next on Fox Sports Midwest.
Cardinals baseball on Fox Sports Midwest is brought to you by Bud Light. Raise one, two right now. By Chevrolet. Visit your local Mid-America Chevy dealer for great prices on the all-new 2016 Malibu. And by Menards. Save big money at Menards on all your home improvement needs. This is opening week around Major League Baseball. Let's turn to Al Raboski's Toyota keys to the game.
Well, we're expecting Mike Leake to make his mark with this first start. And, of course, he's been very good. 24 starts previously for Leake against them. He's 4-0, or excuse me, 2-0 last year with a 2 ERA in 4 starts. He's won his last 7 against Pittsburgh. And, of course, David Freese, we got to control our old friend. He's had a great series against the Cardinals. And, of course, he's done really a lot of damage. 8 for 16 is he when he's facing Mike Leake. So that's really the only guy in the Pirates lineup that's given Leake some trouble.
The umpires are on the scene. Trip Gibson will call the balls and strikes. Clint Fagan down at first, Jerry Lane at second. Hunter Wendelstadt will be over at third. Let's just hope there's no issues with the replay system that we had on opening day Sunday, which is why we had a delay in that game. And again, a little bit of a delay in this ball game as the Pirates have not taken to the field yet.
I remember opening day was about a 10-minute delay. And they said it was a good thing that Joe Torre was here because he kind of set the ground rules that both managers could make unlimited challenges in that game. We saw 3 of them in about the first 2 innings.
There's a look at Mike Matheny. He has averaged 94 wins his first 4 seasons at the helm of the St. Louis Cardinals. On the other side, we showed you Clint Hurdle, 6th year as the manager of the Pirates after parts of 8 years as a manager of Colorado. I'm looking forward to this, seeing Mike Leake, and we did a number of his games down in spring training, and he was really good.
Well, he was the 21st player to come straight from collegiate or high school and go right to the big leagues. He did that in 2010, being a #1 draft pick of Cincinnati that year. We opened up with Cincinnati in 2010 in the Queen City, and they just said that he just had a great poise. He threw strikes. He won the job out of spring, and they took the chance on him. And now he's only 28 years of age, and the Cardinals signed him to a big contract for 5 years with a club option. So let's see the League series or era start right here tonight.
Matt Carpenter leads it off tonight for Mike Matheny's club, followed by right fielder Steven Piscotty. Matt Holliday will play left field, bat third. Brandon Moss is the cleanup man for the Cardinals. Yadier Molina will bat 5th, do the catching duties. Then Colton Wong, Jed Jerko, who homered here last night. Jeremy Hazelbaker, his first ever Major League start. Mike Leake on the mound, bats 9th. Juan Nicasio, again, another one of those rate sheared projects that looks like, at least from the spring training numbers, it is going to pay off. He had 15 scoreless innings this spring, in which he struck out 24. He was overpowering at times, and he beats out Ryan Vogelsong for the spot in the rotation.
Yeah, they really signed him for relief, but he wanted a chance to start. He beats out Vogelsong. You talk about all those strikeouts. He had 1 game against Baltimore where in 4 innings he struck out 10 of the 14 batters he faced. He's always had a good overpowering fastball and a pretty good slider, but he's always been, control has been an issue.
Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers around the horn. Marte, McCutchen, Polanco in the outfield. Freeze, Mercer, Harrison, Jaso along the infield, and Cervelli is behind the plate. Matt Carpenter, 3 things that you need to know about the Cardinals leadoff man and everyday third baseman. Obviously, he slugs from the top of the order. 22 home runs leading off a year ago. That was a franchise record, and he always sees a ton of pitches. I mean, he's an ideal leadoff man in terms of working the count, seeing a lot of pitches. Where he's an oddity is the power and maybe the lack of speed, because he's not a stolen base threat. But boy, has he been good in this top spot.
Well, the other thing too that really is good for a leadoff man is his ability to score runs. You go back the last 3 years, he's second in the major leagues in runs scored. So he gets the job done. And remember, for 3 years he had a total of 25 home runs, and then he became more aggressive last year and had a career high 84 RBIs with a team high 28 home runs.
Big talk at camp. Should he hit first or second in the lineup? Maybe drop down to fourth, fifth. The numbers don't lie, though. When he hits first in the lineup, .312 average. We mentioned the 22 home runs, drove in 50. On-base percentage near 400. Last year he batted second 69 times and only hit .225. And Nicasio misses just a bit low. He's a hard thrower. Mid to high 90s with that fastball. 1 ball, 1 strike.
Changeup you kind of forget about. It's very inconsistent. Just the simple little things, maybe moving him over to third base, but really just talking to him and getting him to feel good about himself and getting the control back. Making that repeatable delivery is what Ray Surge has worked with him on.
Here's a 1-2 pitch. Nicasio is a 29-year-old from the Dominican. Big guy, 6'4", 250 pounds. As Al told you, signed as a free agent last year with the Dodgers. Made 53 appearances with 1 start. He was 1-3. ERA was close to 4. Here's another 1-2 pitch.
And it's amazing that he is even pitching here at the major league level. We remember back in 2011 he was struck by a line drive, and it was, that was bad enough, but when he fell unorthodox, he fractured his neck, and it was a C1. That usually means you're being paralyzed. Had the emergency surgery, and here you are pitching and making a rotation.
2 balls and 2 strikes. And again, we talked about Carpenter working counts, 7 pitches already. And you can see the scar in the back of the neck from the surgery. Neck surgery performed a few years ago. 3-2 the count. Outfield is straight away. And the next to Matt Carpenter, the Cardinals leadoff man. Spoiled. You'll notice Nicasio, the way that he starts his windup, there was 2 things that Ray Surge really tried to work on with him, was to close up the front shoulder. Many times it flies open, so that left foot is in front. He'll spin towards the third base side. There's Ray. And then the landing foot, the left foot, driving right towards home plate. Closes up to the plate, and a strikeout of Carpenter. Missouri Lottery Fox Tracks.
You see so far off the plate, looks like Carpenter, and he just nails it down and away on the black. And Dan, exactly what you're talking about. You can see the landing area. He's kicking at it right now, but that's what he's trying to aim for. When he gets in that motion, that lead leg, you'll try and hit that spot right there instead of being throwing across his body.
They believe they've gotten him a lot more compact with the delivery, more fluid, free and easy, not fighting, as you mentioned, throwing across his body. Here's Stephen Piscotty. Piscotty on base 3 times last night with a triple, a walk, run scored, and don't forget the assist to get Andrew McCutchen trying to score midway through.
I heard today that throw was registered 94 miles an hour. It was kind of funny. Mike Matheny in his interview was talking about his throwing ability and how good he is. He said, well, we might not see 95, 96 like we saw from Hayward. And everybody said, hey, he registered 94. So we may see that 96.
Big gap in left center and a 2-1 pitch. Nicasio came up in 2011 with the Rockies. Actually made his major league debut against the Cardinals, game that he won with Colorado. He was a starter, then moved to the bullpen in 2014.
7 shutout innings in that debut.
Called third strike. Cardinals now have struck out 29 times in this series.
That little slider and just gets a little piece down and away, so he's been able to stay out of the middle of the strike zone.
Here's Holiday. 1 for 7 to start the season. 2 outs and nobody on. Slowly hit up the middle. Tough play here. Mercer gloves, throws, and out at first. Don't go to break just yet. We'll see if they want to review this. Mike Matheny at the top step of the dugout. They're going to take a look at this. The Cardinals video department will get the word to David Bell. They will not challenge, it looks like. And it will be a 1-2-3 inning for Juan Nicasio. We'll see the season and Cardinal debut of Mike Leake. That's up next after this brief timeout. McCutchen, David Freese in the first inning. Then we'll see Starling Marte, Cervelli, Polanco, Harrison, Mercer, and Nicasio for the Pirates. Mike Leake a year ago split time with Cincinnati, the team that originally drafted him, and the San Francisco Giants. Finished up 11-10 with a 3.70 ERA.
Very good athlete, durable. Been on the disabled list only twice in his 6-year career. Once for fatigue in his shoulder his first year in pro ball, and then a hamstring last year.
Here's a 1-0 pitch to Jaso and a strike.
A very quick worker, ground ball specialist. You know the infield's going to love playing behind Mike Leake.
And a ground ball that is foul off the foot of Jaso. Very close play to end the top of the first, and the replay showed that Clint Fagan got the call right. Very good call.
Yeah, in the back of the glove right before the foot came down on the bag.
Outfield is straight away and a shift on now with 2 strikes. 1-2 on Jaso. He was 1 for 5 last night and scored a run. This shows you the premium that the Pirates put on base percentage to let Alvarez go. You could probably pencil in 25-30 home runs from that first base spot. Fly ball into center field. There's Jeremy Hazelbaker. Puts it away. Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers around the horn. It's Holiday in left, Hazelbaker in center, Piscotti is in right. Carpenter, Jerko, Wong, and Moss along the infield. Yadier Molina behind the plate. Again, that's around the horn, presented by Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers.
Sure, Mike Leake just getting that first out just helps settle him down a little bit.
Here's Andrew McCutchen. We've talked about it before that Mike Leake made his major league debut right out of college. Pitched at Arizona State. And since that time in 2010, he's 5th among National League starters in innings and tied for 5th in starts. So he gives you innings, gives you a chance to win just about every time out.
That's what I think you can really say about him. You know, he's not that really flashy type guy, but he's very, very consistent. And it's worth repeating again. Talked to Bob Walk, longtime pitcher himself, broadcaster here for the Pirates. He felt that if there was one starting pitcher, he wished his team would have gone out and there you see Walk and fight in the win. But he wanted Mike Leake for the Pirates because of his ability to take the ball every 5th day and get ground ball outs.
2 balls, 2 strikes. Pulled foul. As much as the Pirates rely on their defense and the shifts, it also would fit into their plans in that regard too. Now, he may have been a little too rich for their blood.
Too rich. Well, it's
5 years, $80 million for Mike Leake.
And you see Nicasio gets 1 year, $3 million. That's more their budget.
The 2-2. We talked about how he is a ground ball pitcher. Of those active pitchers right now in baseball with at least 1,000 innings, think about this. He's one of 6 who get over 50% ground balls. It's an amazing amount. Here's another fly ball into center. Hazelbaker can't get there, and it drops in for a base hit. The Hyundai pitch arsenal includes a knuckle curve from Mike Leake.
Yeah, the one thing you kind of always think about the sinker, you see how he'll throw that almost 50% of the time. He still throws that fastball, a 4-seamer. He's got all those different pitches, but that's more like, you know, when I joined professional baseball, I was told George Sylvie was the Cardinals farm director. That time he said you have to throw 70% fastballs in order to maintain your velocity. And rarely do you see a pitcher today have a fastball in that range.
David Freese is 8 for 16 against Mike Leake with a pair of doubles and a home run in his career. 4 hits in this series. We saw Hazelbaker playing left, center, and right this spring for the Cardinals. It looked like he got a little bit of a late jump when the ball hit by McCutchen.
And you're still learning how to do the big leagues. You can see how far back there, but he hits it off the end of the bat and maybe didn't get that good read to see that it was off the end of the bat, meaning it wasn't going to carry very far. But he showed in defense and spring training that he can play all 3 outfield positions. Has the speed to be a center fielder.
2 balls and no strikes. Talked with Jeremy before the game down in the clubhouse. His first 2 years at Ball State, he was a second baseman. Lost playing time his sophomore year, went to the coach for his junior season and said, I want to play every day. Admittedly, he said he was struggling defensively at second base. He's a good athlete, good speed, and that's why he was moved to the outfield. And here we see him tonight in center field. First ever start in the major leagues.
And what a start that Freese is having with his new ball club. He does have 4 strikeouts, but also 4 hits, and made some good plays defensively.
Didn't like that call, and it's 2-2.
Sure looked like it was a strike.
Talking with a couple of scouts today, they were raving about the pitch framing the first 2 days of Yadier Molina. They feel that Yadi has really bought the staff a lot of borderline pitches in games 1 and 2. And that's spoiled. David knows he has to protect with 2 strikes, especially after the strike 2 call.
There's an example right there that you're going to see the new netting in most ballparks right over the dugout. That might have saved a fan or a seat. Kind of a sparse crowd tonight.
A little warmer tonight, and yet the crowd much smaller. That's a foul ball off the foot of David Freese.
Rain in the forecast, but it should be late enough for this game to be completed.
This date back in 2009, David Freese made his major league debut with the St. Louis Cardinals. We didn't know about him. We knew he's from St. Louis, and we knew he was traded for a fan favorite in Jim Edmonds. And he himself became quite the fan favorite in St. Louis, David Freese.
Kind of be his playing days are over. He'll still be remembered for what he did in 2011 postseason.
I asked him yesterday about that. I said, is it still brought up? Are you talking to people about it? And he said, the one thing I love about it, it's impacted so many kids. I found out in my time in St. Louis, kids that love to play the game and kids that really look up to me. So it's been very important. McCutchen is running, and the pitch is driven out to right field. Piscotty back with room, makes the catch on the track and fires it back into first base. Look at that throw by Stephen Piscotty. Back on his heels in a 1-hopper and a strike to the bag at first.
Well, you like that, but you're able to go back and you know the situation. The runner's going. So if he lollygags and trying to get back, he would have been thrown out. But you're talking about McCutchen, one of their speedier runners. But you see right there in the warning track, there's no wasted motion. He threw that ball. Moss was in a position to try and stretch out and try and get the out. You like to see that you're well aware of what's going on.
Now Starling Marte hitless in 8 at-bats to start this series and this season.
See, league just a little bit off now. The 3 balls have been hit. They've all been in the air and not those ground balls we've been talking about, but they will come.
That's it out of play. Not the same body type, but he reminds me a little bit of Kyle Loesch. Not a hard thrower, mixes it in, cuts it.
When he first signed, he kind of reminded of his veteran teammate Bronson Arroyo.
The 0-1.
What's going to be interesting also is to see Mike Leake working with Yadier Molina. You know, Leake's never been in a position where he could just depend on his catcher. He's accustomed to calling his own game.
Here's a 1-1. And a base hit into right field. So Marte has his first hit of the season. And it brings in Francisco Cervelli.
Off the plate, they're trying to pitch him away. The ball comes back in the middle, little inside out stroke, slices it into right field. So one thing about these Pirates, they've learned how to use the field. Don't try to get away from being pull hitters.
Cervelli led their team in average a year ago. Hit .295. Runners at first and second. with 2 outs, and that pitch is taken outside. In the clubhouse, I also talked to Molina about what you were just saying, Al. I said, how would you describe Mike Leake? And Yachty said, creative, very, very smart, and a lot better than I thought he would be. And he said, and I had great respect for him facing him when he was pitching for Cincinnati, and I had to face him as a hitter. He said, but for me, guys like this are a ton of fun because you can get really creative with the pitch maker that Mike Leake is.
And Mike Matheny was talking about that creativity of Yachty's. You know, how he works pitchers, gets the most out of them, gets them to do things, and to believe in what he was putting down and the location. But Mike Leake has said, you know, here's a guy that's had to do that thinking himself. They get on the same page, you can see good results.
2 hits in the inning, 2 outs, and a 1-2 pitch. In terms of how Molina feels, he says, I feel great. The strength is back in the hand. No ill effects from that right now, and ready to go for the long haul of this 2016 campaign.
You know, that's really good news, because last year, remember how slow a start he got off and how sluggish he looked. A lot of us thought it was maybe the loss of the weight, but I think more and more it was coming back from that hand surgery and not having the strength in his hand. So coming back after 2 surgeries this year, much stronger. See, Leake's just not getting the ball down that we're accustomed to seeing, but sure, the adrenaline is there, and with that you get that extra rush, and you have a little trouble getting on top of the ball or getting it down, but it will come.
The 2-2. Hit out of play. Turned into a long first inning here for Mike Leake. This will be pitch number 30 upcoming.
And that's another thing. We talk about his innings, but he'll get you into that second half of a game just about every time, but not when he's throwing 30-pitch innings.
The 2-2 pitch to Francisco Cervelli. Positioning for the Cardinals defensively, Hazelbaker's shading Cervelli into right center, so big gap left side of the outfield. Good speed on the bases. Ball hits the gap. It's 2-0.
And even down the left field line. Is Holiday way off the left field line. But that's what I'm talking about. These Pirate hitters who kind of learn how to use the entire field. And as a pitcher, if you got a pull hitter, it's easy to pitch to. But if you got a guy that will use all the field, you got to move the ball around. You can't stay in one location.
Very breezy night. Wind is blowing out towards the left field line. Bases loaded. Inning started with a fly out by Jaso to center. McCutcheon, a base hit into center. Freeze lined out to the track and right. Marte, base hit to right. Cervelli the walk. And now Gregory Polanco, who was 2 for 3 with a triple, 2 runs scored last night. One thing to consider about Mike Leake. Last year, lefties hit him much better than right-handed batters. Lefties 262, the righties 218. And he's got a lefty here.
Well, Polanco's 2 for 16 off of Mike Leake, but we're seeing a lot more power coming off the bat. Speed and just the rifling off the Clemente wall and right. The way Polanco's swinging, he just got that new big contract.
A 5-year extension with 2 club options on top of that. First pitch is a strike. Mike at Arizona State had 40 wins in 3 years. And in college baseball, that's unheard of. 40 in 3 years, and was the 8th overall pick in 2009.
And I'm sure there are some clubs that looked at his size and said that's the only reason why. You know, he would have had like 5 more inches on his frame. He might have been taken lower than 8. And they play a pretty good brand of baseball out there.
Oh, yeah. Dustin Pedroia, Andre Ethier, Barry Bonds, all played at Arizona State.
You could go back and keep on going.
Oh, yeah. Here's a 1-1.
I see a lot of this with the wind, the watering of the eyes, debris being blown into hitters' eyes.
Pulled foul past Nick Leva. Now the shift being used on the infield for the Cardinals with Polanco at the plate. Very exaggerated towards the first base side.
Well, I'm sure there's been a couple pitches that I'm sure Mike wanted. Trip Gibson, a home plate umpire, probably said that went around the plate.
Runners go, and it's 1-0. Bases loaded walk, RBI for Polanco, and it's 1-0 Pittsburgh. And just like that, Derek Lilliquist hops out of the Cardinals dugout.
Probably the most important thing is you just give him a little bit of a breather. Tell him to breathe. How about this? Bowman already up. Rule 5 selection at the Mets. He was the only pitcher not used in the bullpen last night by Mike Matheny.
Now Harrison, who's 6 for 24 against Mike Leake. Well, I think it's safe to say, after watching him in spring training, this is shocking to see this start with a lack of control.
Yeah, it's one thing you don't seem to worry about with him.
Two and one.
That time he really kind of aimed that ball instead of letting it fly, falling behind 2-0.
Back to Leake, and he makes the play. The Pirates pick up 1 in the first, a bases loaded walk by Gregory Polanco to score Andrew McCutchen, and Leake, the very good athlete that he is, self-defense. Follow the Cardinals with MLB At Bat. Live game video highlights, the StatCast, and so much more with news and highlights from around the league. MLB At Bat just for you.
So much for Mike Leake going deep into this ball game. He threw 42 pitches in the first inning.
And the first pitch taken low by Brandon Moss. Moss is at first base tonight. Remember, Tommy Pham hurt, so Holiday is in left. Man, Tommy Pham just cannot get any luck health-wise. He had a broken wrist. He's had a torn wrist ligament, torn labrum. Did that twice. Quadriceps about this time last year. Then he had the eye disorder. And the Cardinals get bad news from the minor leagues today with Marco Gonzalez, who's been shut down, and he'll have a second opinion on his left elbow.
Yeah, the elbow, and never sounds good.
Nope.
And that was going to be probably our #1 pitcher that would be called up if you had a need for a starter.
Here's a 3-1 pitch to Brandon Moss. 3-2. And it's a swing and a miss. Nicasio, the former Rocky, has struck out 3 of the first 4 he has seen. Now, speaking of the Rockies, how about this story? Trevor Story, first player since Joe Cunningham, our buddy, in 1954, 3 home runs, first 2 career games. Hit his 4th in the 3rd game today.
Guess they weren't worried when they traded Tulowitzki, huh?
I don't know if I go that far, but what a start.
Yeah, and of course Joe Cunningham, my first minor league manager, and what a great friend. Started the Cardinals elementary school program with Fred Bird, and been recognized by many law enforcement presidents for what he's done. And I think he hit the first 2 home runs on opening day off a Warren Spahn.
The 2-0 is hit sharply to second base. Harrison had him positioned perfectly. You know, we've been talking a lot about analytics and how it's come into play for the Pirates, in particular looking at that and then getting in the positioning and the shifts. And Andrew McCutchen was saying the other day he didn't fully buy into this. And he said, if you do, you better be fully committed to what you're going to have to deal with, because the year before they decided to go all in, he won the Gold Glove. And the following year, his stats were actually better defensively than they were in 2012. And that's Harrison, the second baseman, but it's paid off in a big way for the Pirates. Fought off, little flare into center field, and a base hit. Colton Wong. Second hit in as many nights.
I talked to Colton today and asking about how did you feel after that first hit. He said, oh, I felt great. But then he immediately brought up the sacrifice that if he got that bunt down, the Cardinals might have won, but he popped it up to the pitcher.
Juan Nicasio, the Hyundai pitch arsenal, hard thrower, fastball, slider, changeup.
That's why I say just forget about that changeup. It's very inconsistent. That's why he throws at such a low percentage.
See if the Cardinals want to do some running here with Colton Wong at 13 steals a year ago. Mentioned last night that Bill Miller will go over the signs, make sure that they have the right signs in place, go over the situation, 2 outs, what they want to do, where a ball is hit. But already before the first pitch is thrown, he has the times off a fastball, a breaking pitch, and a slide step. And so right now what he's doing is keeping time for when the ball will leave Nicasio's hand and hits the glove of Cervelli. And if he has the time that fits to what they want to do, they will put the play on and they'll go for it. It's really interesting how video has been able to even take that part of the game to another level.
Well, it's just simple math. know approximately how long it takes Wong with his jump to get down to second base. Then you compute in the pitcher's release time and the catcher's throwing time to second. And if there's a big enough differential, you'll take the chance and run.
Jerko, the home run yesterday, has the most at bats against Nicasio in the lineup tonight for the Cardinals. 3 for 15 with a pair of doubles. Here's a 1-1 pitch. Instead, a check on Kolten Wong.
Just doing that, just forcing him, and he was jockeying around over at first base, Wong with his lead. Nicasio sees that and he'll throw over, but get the pitcher to separate his concentration to the hitter, and maybe make that lackadaisical pitch and you can jump him.
The 1-1. Leaning towards second. Looked like he may have had a jump and wanted to go, and Nicasio, by holding just a little bit longer, disrupted that timing.
Yeah, it takes the spring out of the legs of a base stealer. It's kind of a funny thing. Sometimes you hold the ball like that, it disrupts the timing of a hitter also. He's kind of in between. Should I call timeout or should I try and stay tense trying to make the swing? Of course, you don't want to be tense, but you do tense up.
Not running on 1 and 2. It's a strikeout of Jerko. 2 in the inning, 4 in 2 innings already for Juan Nicasio. 31 strikeouts for the Cardinals in this series. Let's check in with Jim Hayes. Jimmy.
Yeah, Dan, we're just a couple of days in, but Randall Grichuk is off to a 1-for-9 start with 5 strikeouts, facing a right-hander tonight. Mike Matheny sitting Grichuk, in his words, to let him take a breath. Grichuk said, not surprising to him, he kind of saw it coming. He said Liriano was nasty in the opener, and it was still in his head last night. He said he was, quote, feeling for it instead of just letting it rip. He said at this time of year, especially when your body feels good, you want to be in there, but he totally understands, Dan.
Hazelbaker, the diving catch in center field. A much better jump this time as opposed to the one off the bat of McCutchen back in the first, and comes up with a fine play. Retires Jordy Mercer. And Jimmy, I was talking to with Grichuk, and he said, I'm getting all kinds of advice from those at home. Family members, friends, anybody that's willing to offer it. And he said at this point, I need to remind everybody it's only 2 games. And he had a very good spring. Little bouncer towards second base. Nicasio is put away by Kolten Wong, and 2 quick outs.
I got to say, it's not just Grichuk. The team right now has 77 at-bats and 31 strikeouts as a team.
And Dan, with Grichuk, he says he runs into trouble when he overthinks it. He's best when he just swings the bat. So when people are giving him advice or talking to him about this and that outside the coaching staff, he realizes best to not listen.
And he's one of the guys that's not overly dependent on video. He'd rather react. He'll look at it, but doesn't study it maybe as much as others, where others really love to see it, love to dissect it bat from at bat, but Randal Grichuk is not one of them. Jaso, ground ball, and that's more like Mike Lee. 6-pitch, second inning. Let's see if he settles in. 1-0 after 2. Cardinals 2+ games of offense in this series, and tonight 4 strikeouts already for Juan Nicasio. He got the first 2. Matt Carpenter a 9-pitch at bat. Stephen Piscotty was caught looking. Brandon Moss and Jed Jerko looking as well.
On Nicasio, we talked about all the strikeouts he had in spring training, but building on it here in the regular season. Dan, you're talking about the analytics and everything. They have a gentleman, his first year with the Pirates, named Chris Johnson. He's from Sikeston, Missouri. He's a psychologist that went to UCLA. He was in the Coast Guard for about 10 years, and then he spent 10 years working with the Navy SEALs. And they, you know how ball club sometimes goes in San Diego, they'll go out and see the SEALs and see some of the training. Well, some of the Pirates did that, and they got to talking to him and asked him if he ever thought about doing doing sports. He said, well, I am working with Golden State, you know, the Warriors, and all of a sudden they said, well, he'd like to do it full time. So he's come here. He's got 30 people under him with all the analytics and everything else. But they're doing a lot of things with mental tests, vision. He made the analogy of like a Navy SEAL. We got to know how these guys can handle all situations. And you can't have hotheads. You can't have people. You got to have people that make split-second decisions. You turn a corner and do you fire at the bad guy, or is that a civilian? And almost incorporating that with the timing of a pitch. You have a millisecond to make a decision, recognize the pitch, and whether to pull the trigger.
There's Jeremy Hazelbaker, who picked up his first ever major league hit in Game 2 last night. And so did Aledmus Diaz, the first Cardinals to do that in the same game since Bernard Gilkey and Geronimo Pena back in 1990.
Got to give some love to Mike Tyson, because he did it in '72. Who else did it with him? Trying that in a second. Bill Stein.
1-2 pitch. Just got a piece. So in visiting with Hazel Baker today in the clubhouse, he is from Selma, Indiana. Grew up a Cardinals fan. And he said that he grew up idolizing Albert Pujols. And so he's gotten his second chance, as he used those words, with the Cardinals and making the most of it. Was released midway through last summer. Had 10 days in which the phone didn't ring. The Cardinals eventually called and he got on fire. Went to AAA after a great stint at AA. He said he had other opportunities but was treated so well by the Cardinals he felt that he not only wanted to be here but he owed it to them. And I said, well, what's happened? What turned the corner for you? He said, honestly, nothing. It's just I've gotten a chance. And he said it's no disrespect to the Boston Red Sox or the Dodgers, but those are organizations that have spent enormous amounts of money on certain players of positions I play. Tough for me to break in. As he pops it up into shallow left field. Marte, the Gold Glover, puts it away.
Dan, I've made the statement before, but sometimes you have to have somebody that likes you more than the guys that dislike you. And obviously he got off to a good start. And that's what the Cardinal people saw.
This week only, T-Mobile customers can get a free season-long subscription to MLB.TV Premium. Go to T-Mobile.com/MLB and sign up today. Here's Mike Leake. He is a career .212 hitter. Owns 6 home runs, 23 RBIs, and in 6 years in the big leagues, 33 sacrifices. So, been very good with the bat.
He almost was going to pinch hit in last night's game before he would have started the game as a pitcher, but he's got the second highest batting average of any active pitcher this year.
And it's a strikeout number 5. So Nicasio, first time through the lineup with 5 strikeouts. 6 is a serious number and on the run. When the Cardinals score 6, any size drink is just 50 cents the next day. That's coffee fountain, frozen drinks. When they score, you pour. At your nearest on the run, you earned it.
Hopefully it'll be a different story the second time through the order. You know, last year as a starter, he really utilized that fastball a lot more, and predominantly they had him only facing, you know, the right-handed batters. Lefties have given him problems in the past.
9-pitch at bat. Start the game for Matt Carpenter, eventually struck out. Well, he's not foreign to strikeouts. Talking about Nicasio, averaged 10 per 9 last year and gave up just 1 home run. So power pitcher, but that's as a reliever, and this is different, going through a lineup a couple, maybe 3 times a night.
Well, you have to hope.
But the point being, you know, if you're a reliever, you come in, you can just let it fly, let
Absolutely.
it rip.
And there really is a value too, that if you're only facing a guy 1 time, and as a reliever you should only face the lineup 1 time, that you can have. That's why if you have something a little quirky, a little deceptive, it's really hard when you're facing a guy just once a night.
The 2-1 pitch is hit out to center field. McCutchen going back. He was playing very shallow and makes the catch near the track. Carpenter is 0 for 2 tonight. We're midway through 3. 1-0 Pirates. Louis Cardinals baseball on Fox Sports Midwest is brought to you by Ford, the official cars and trucks of the St. Louis Cardinals. And by Steel Outdoor Power Equipment. Quality, reliability, and value. Find a servicing Steel dealer at steeldealers.com or search STIHL. Bottom of the third rolls in. 2, 3, and 4 in the lineup to face Mike Leake. McCutchen single to center field. And has scored the lone run tonight. Pirates lead 1-0 on a bases loaded walk issued to Gregory Polanco. What kind of start will the Pirates get off to this year with a healthy Andrew McCutchen? Hit 194 last April, was dealing with leg issues. And once he got healthy, early May to the end of the year, the Pirates had the best record in baseball.
Cardinals had a good start to the April. And then after that, they were chasing the Pirates.
The 3-1.
Hutchin, they feel he's healthy again, so candidate for the MVP. He's already won 1. And in the last 4 years, he's been in the top 5 every year.
3-2 pitch. And McCutchen pops it in the air. Shallow right center, and Hazelbaker makes the catch. It's the Let's Motor Player Profile brought to you by BMW Mini. And a look at Mike Leake and what he's done against the National League Central Division. Very familiar, obviously, with this division. All his time, with the exception of 2 months spent in the Central with Cincinnati, and then finished up last year with the Giants.
Like I said, this is his 25th start against the Pirates, the most of any team. And he's had success against them, 8-3 with an ERA at 3. He's won his last 7 starts against them.
David Freese makes his offseason home still in St. Louis. He told me he worked out with his junior college coach at Merrimack, Tony DeToli, this past offseason. And Tony's been involved in amateur sports for a number of years, high school, college level. And then he went down to Jupiter to work with Matt Holliday and Matt Carpenter, and then eventually was signed late by Pittsburgh. One and 2 the count on David Freese.
Clint Hurdle, we mentioned it the first 2 games, but said everything in his life is going in the right direction, on and off the field, and happy for him.
Ooh, doesn't get the call.
Coming inside and just a little bit inside. Back away.
And a grounder to short, handled by Jed Jerko. There's 2 outs.
Leake, for having 42 pitches in the first inning, it's only a 1-0 game. And, you know, he's not going to be able to go deep in this game, but we're still, it's going to seem like it probably wouldn't surprise me if he's going to get through 5 innings.
Wouldn't surprise me if we looked up and he's through 6.
Yeah.
I mean, he can have those quick innings. He had a 6-pitch second inning.
Even though he struck out tonight in his first plate appearance, you know, you don't have to pinch hit for him. He'll pinch hit many a time over the course of his career with the Cardinals.
Here's Marte, and he hits it out of play. Now we're starting to see the pitches are down in the zone, which is more typical of what we saw in spring training.
You know, you're so excited. You're a new club. You want to do well. You want to stop the 2-game losing streak, and that adrenaline is a little bit high, and it'll force you to throw the ball up.
That pitch up.
Yeah.
Right on
Don't
cue.
listen to me. We're telling you, throw it down. But
2-1 pitch. hit out of play.
Players are human, they're not machines, and just have to go out there and stay within your adrenaline.
Ooh, Marte is hit by the pitch. He is no stranger to that. Among the league leaders every season in being hit by the pitch.
See, where's that guard on his upper bicep? A lot of times you kind of accuse him of maybe trying to lean into a pitch and utilize that, but it looks like this one got him in the rib cage. Tried to go in, and the ball does get in there and gets him. If you do want to hit a guy, that's right where you hit him. Because if they turn one way, they get it right in the sternum. Turn the other way, get it in the back, or in this case, it gets it in the ribs. But it was just a pitch that got away.
Well, we have a moment. Big Cardinal fan Lewis Kurtz turns 11 today. And watching Cardinals baseball tonight, happy birthday to Lewis Kurtz. Ball game yesterday, 2 Cardinals were hit, and that's the first Pirate that's been hit in this series. Brings in Cervelli, who walked back in the first inning. The Pirates have won the last 6 extra inning home games against the Cardinals, and they've had 6 different players walk off St. Louis. And last night it was Jordy Mercer's turn. This rivalry has gotten better. The Pirates have gotten better to match the Cardinals, and man, there's been some intense games along the way.
Well, Dan, and it's just gotten to be the point where the Cardinals win in St. Louis, the Pirates win here.
Marte is running, and the pitch is driven out to left, but there is Holiday. He makes the catch. We head to the 4th. It'll be Piscotty, Holiday, and Brandon Moss. Pirates on top, 1-0. Opening day at Busch Stadium, nothing like it. Monday, Fox Sports Midwest will have your ticket to the festivities. An extended pregame show, I mean extended, 3 hours. All the opening day ceremonies from Busch Stadium. The Cardinals home opener coverage starts Monday at noon. On-field ceremonies beginning at 2:30 and exclusively right here on Fox Sports Midwest. Nothing like it opening day in St. Louis.
Talked about that on Sunday after the game. If the Pirates wouldn't have had some awards to give out to their team, it would have been extremely boring. But nobody does opening day like St. Louis.
Here's Stephen Piscotty, top of the fourth. And he looks at a strike, was called out on strikes back in the first. The Cardinals on Sunday, opening day, had 5 position players 28 years or younger in their starting lineup. First time for that to happen since 1999 for the club. You think about it, this isn't a rebuild. This is a team that had 100 wins last year. And in this great 5-year run the Cardinals are in, they played 61 postseason games. As Piscotty hits it out to left center field, Marte is over with room and makes the catch. But those 61 games in a 5-year stretch of playoff baseball, that's the 6th most ever in the history of the game. That's a lot of postseason.
This is the first time the Cardinals have gone to the postseason 5 straight years. So Mike Matheny became the first manager in Major League history. The first 4 years at the helm has taken his team into postseason.
Much of this has been done with player development, making the right trades. One of those was Holiday. I mean, you just give John Mozeliak, his staff and ownership a ton of credit for what they've been able to do.
You talked about yesterday about Branch Rickey establishing the farm system. And the Cardinals have done a great job of scouting players, finding them, developing them, and bringing them to the big leagues. And there's an awful lot of players that are homegrown playing for the Cardinals and scattered around the league.
The Cardinal influence is even felt with the Pirates and George Kissel. A year into retirement, it was Ray Searage who talked to Kissel, and Kissel was the one that said, you need to be a coach. And George also had a voice in drafting Searage out of West Virginia. And he's the one that asked Ray, are you interested in coaching? Isn't that something? Just the tie into George and the fact that he's done so much for St. Louis and obviously others around the league.
I think he did the same thing with Tony La Russa. As smart as Tony is, it took him a little second to realize what he was saying. Your playing days are over.
Slowly hit up the first base line, and the play is made by Nicasio.
One of the controversial plays of yesterday was a game with the Yankees and Houston. Carlos Correa hit a ball, a swinging bunt. It went down the first base line, and he ran in the grass. It's impossible for a right-handed batter not to start in the grass when you see where Holiday gets in the running lane. But in this case, Correa ran the whole way in the grass. The pitcher for the Yankees had tried to lob it over his head and threw the ball away. And Terry Tata, the crew chief, as Girardi protested the game, said, well, he should have drilled him in the back. If we would have done that, you know, we would have called him out.
2-0 the count on Brandon Moss. He struck out back in the second inning.
And as harsh as that sounds, most people, that's the way they teach you. Go ahead and hit a guy on the back. If you're in that situation and the guy is running down the line.
Yeah, I think part of the success too is you got to have continuity, and the Pirates finally have that in their front office. Cardinals certainly have had that. Well, Neil Huntington's done a great job here with Pittsburgh.
Really
John Mozeliak has done a remarkable job in St. Louis.
You know, and now, like you say, you get a little track record. They got a manager in Clint Hurdle that's been here for a while, changed the culture.
And you have to be creative. You know, Clint Hurdle, we were in his office last year before a game, and he said, I didn't want anything to do with analytics. I didn't want anything to do with scouting reports, showing me analytics. He said, we had 2 losing seasons. My job may be on the line. If this is going to help me, help us get better, I'll try it. Boy, Moss just missed that as he hits it a mile high. And Polanco puts it away. They're trying to go to postseason for the 4th consecutive year. They're on top of this one, 1-0. Bright spot thus far early on in this season, a couple of games, but yesterday 18 retired in a row. Included in there was an outing by Sungwon Oh in which he struck out the side. With more on that, let's check in with Jimmy.
Yeah, he's been really good. 2 innings so far, 5 strikeouts, 2 scoreless innings. I asked him if you had to adjust to big league hitters. He told me through his interpreter, Eugene Koo, baseball is the universal language, and a baseball player is a baseball player. He told me he's more focused on executing his pitches as opposed to who he's facing. O is known for keeping his emotions in check. I asked him if there was any extra emotion about heading out to the mound Sunday for his major league debut. He said no. His interpreter, Eugene, was more nervous than he was. I asked, how did Eugene do? And he said in perfect English, O said, not bad.
Eugene told me that he was just afraid that he was going to trip and fall and then be the laughing stock of Major League Baseball for the next 6 months. He was really worried about it.
I mean, think about it. All of a sudden you're out on the mound. Yeah, he didn't want the focus to be on him. That's for sure.
And for those of you that didn't see it, the Cardinals called him out, the interpreter Eugene. First base open, McCutchen at the plate. And when I say the Cardinals, it was Yadier Molina. And the Cardinals were unsure as to whether or not that's an official visit. They found out in a hurry it is. And Derek Lilliquist was telling us that he was thankful. He said, man, we are so lucky we didn't have, this was our 2nd visit, because I was ready to go out there before that and settle down O, which then would have been 2 visits. We had nobody warming up. It's 35 degrees out. He said we would have been in big time trouble, but now they do know, and Mike was telling us that they have checked with Major League Baseball again, and that will be an official visit if he goes out there by himself. Here is Josh Harrison following the walk to Polanco. Great jump. Yadi to second base, and he still got him. Wow, what a throw from the Gold Glover, Yadier Molina. Polanco had a terrific jump, and still Molina gets him.
He had 27 steals a year ago, did Polanco, and she said a great jump, and yet he's gunned down. And that's what Yadi, that's the first stolen base attempt of the year against Yadi. It'll probably be the last in this series.
Something else, isn't he?
Absolutely. And there you go, the tag right there, and he slides right into it.
Looks like the Pirates want to review this, and he looks to be out. If you're going to overturn a call, again, just to refresh you, if you're going to overturn a call on the field like this, the evidence going the other way has to be indisputable to overturn it. So just looking at this, the tag was a little bit high, but it didn't seem like he was able to get in the, well, now I see that, and I think maybe he did miss it.
You know, you look at the lead leg, he tags him up on the knee, but it looks like the leg did get to the bag before the tag.
So this is out of their hands, those that you see there. And the play is being reviewed by umpires that are in New York, and it's in their hands, if you will.
And tag gets, you know, you see him going down and plenty of time, but he doesn't touch him until after it looked like the lead foot got to the left foot got to the base.
It's amazing how technology has changed the game here. The camera angles are getting better and better. I want to follow up something with Eugene too. Apparently he is not supposed to visit the mound on his own. He must be accompanied by either Mike Matheny or someone of the coaching staff. That's something that also was clarified with this as well.
Well, that makes sense. You know,
sure does.
You hope there's not an overzealous security guard that sees a guy out of uniform running out on the field. Don't want to have another word, call them out. We like it.
The one replay from the center field camera I thought may have shown that he got in there, but again, you can't tell the space between the glove, if there was even space, and the leg.
He puts the glove down, but does that leg get there?
See right there, I couldn't tell you if he's tagged or not.
Yeah. But you know, you also, when a guy is sliding feet first like that, I remember Lou Brock, you know, I mean, how many Lou slid so late. And I mean, I can't tell you how many times I saw him slide right on top of the bag and said, oh my gosh, he's going to break his leg. But there weren't too many infielders wanting to keep that tag down there because he's sliding in their spikes first. And a lot of times because of that late slide, he'd knock the ball out of the middle infielders out of their glove.
There's Josh Harrison, who lined back to Leake his first time up and picks up a base hit into right. Mike Leake and the Cardinals seem to be the perfect fit at the right time as we get a look at the Chevy Fox tracks. And Harrison just going with the pitch. Lance Lynn gets injured. Most around baseball thought that Leake would wind up with Arizona. Then they go out, they sign Greinke, they make the trade for Shelby Miller. There's only so much money to go around, and Mike really wanted to be with Arizona for personal reasons to stay closer to home. But he later said, this was meant to be. I feel this is right to be in the Central and be with the Cardinals. And the personal reasons, by the way, Mike's dad was building a cabin, fell off the roof trying to build this cabin, and he has dealt with some significant injuries, one that keeps him in a wheelchair, and Mike wanted to be closer to home. His parents, Chris and Sarah, and that was in August. And so he thought, I'm going to hit free agency. Diamondbacks would be the team, but he winds up with St. Louis.
And what a job he did those last 4 starts that he had with Cincinnati. He was outstanding before he was traded to San Francisco. But just one more example of, you know, we ask these players to be robots, and yet there's a lot of things go on in their personal life that they have to separate and go out there and perform.
That ball gets away. Advancing is Harrison to second base.
Looked like it was a pretty good throw, wasn't it?
Yeah, made this one maybe on Moss. It's an error.
Going to the back corner and just couldn't stop. There was a low throw, but it's got to be knocked down. It'll be an error on the pitcher, but always is. But that ball's got to be caught.
Fourth at bat for the Pirates, of the man in scoring position. And Mercer fooled by that pitch. Mercer line to center field. It was a diving catch by Hazelbaker that took a hit away, and that was in the second inning.
Walk-off hit last night was his 4th of his career.
The 2-2.
Wasn't it the last 6 extra inning games between these two teams? The game-winning hit or play was been 6 different Pirates that have contributed. Yeah, they have a star in McCutchen. They got stars in upcoming and Marte and Polanco. It's a team affair, isn't it?
Mercer strikes out, the first as a Cardinal for Mike Leake. Friday, April 15th, 30,000 fans ages 16 and older take home their very own replica Busch Stadium 3 with working lights. One-of-a-kind stadium replica presented by Ameren, Missouri. And the stadium replica, the Adam Wainwright bobblehead, and also the Yadier Molina jersey giveaway when the Cardinals face Leake's former team, the Reds.
Way to go, Richard Marks. That's a perfect tie-in for Ameren, Missouri. It's a really neat little model of the stadium, but then with those lights, it is perfect for Ameren.
Juan Nicasio grounded out to second and hits it back to Leake, who makes the play. Nicasio slams the bat down, and the Pirates have left 5 on. We head to the 5th, 1-0 Pittsburgh. Pat, that is home dominance. How about that? He had never lost at home.
Right.
Incredible.
The big talents that they've got from young pitchers. Cardinals beat him up in spring training late too.
Only went in his final tune-up 3 2/3 against St. Louis. And they've talked about being very careful again this year coming off Tommy John. He did pitch a little bit last year. Roughly 65 innings. Here's Molina, and the first pitch is grounded foul.
Is he potential free agent this year?
No. He's got 3 years left. Represented by Scott Boras. We'll see who that takes him. The top young stars in the game today. 1 ball, 1 strike on Molina. Yachty had his 12th consecutive opening day start on Sunday. The last Cardinals catcher prior to Molina to make his start. Behind home plate for an opening day is his manager now as Molina hits a fly ball out to left. And Starling Marte is there.
Well, we've stopped striking out, but we're not getting any hits.
That is 8 in a row for Juan Nicasio.
Only hit by Colton Wong.
That was a base hit to center field. Back in the second inning.
Talked to Colton about the base hit yesterday and then not getting the bunt down. And he said, I'm just going to slow things down. Just trying to move too fast. Just calm down, stay within myself.
Here's an 0-1 pitch. Freeze is in at third. Another aspect of the pitching that's been very good has been the defense of Francisco Cervelli. They brought him over from the Yankees in a trade. Here's a ground ball. Harrison from the outfield grass. Very athletic player makes that play. Baseball is back, and FS1 will have its first national telecast of the season tomorrow. Prince Fielder and the Rangers will take on Mike Trout and the Angels. It's all on America's home for baseball all season long. FS1. Watch it live on Fox Sports Go. So they bring in Cervelli last year, and every night in spring training he would take a different pitcher out to dinner. Wanted to know about them personally, their personality, where they're from, what they're about. That's something that Clint Hurdle and Ray Sears had talked about, trying to get to know these guys away from the field, build a family atmosphere with the 25-man roster.
Some cases, players know their teammates more than they know their family. They spend more time with their teammates than their family.
For 6 months they do,
They sure
at least.
do. Well, really 8 months.
Talking with Jed Jerko at the hotel today, and this has been a fairly long start to the season for him because he's from West Virginia. Wife and 2-year-old twin boys have been with him as well. I know that can be kind of long. Just a little. Those guys running at each other all day. I have boy-girl twins. I can't imagine boy twins. The boy-girls, they get after it just enough.
You have 4 under 10. Right?
Luke is 10.
Luke's 10.
Yep. 10, 8, and twins that are 7. And you are expecting.
Well, not personally, but.
Well, I didn't finish my sentence.
Yeah.
But no, you're not expecting.
Yeah, thank you.
But you are expecting to add to the Raboski clan.
Yeah. Mickey, due on the 20th of April.
If you're expecting, we need to talk. Here's a 1-2. Reaching for it. Lifted to right center. Another fly ball out. Jerko retired. That's 10 in a row for Juan Nicasio. Midway through 5, Pirates on top. Bottom half of the fifth rolls in, and Power Stats brought to you by Kubota. They play very well here at home. These two teams have been two of the best, not only in the Central, but in all of baseball. Last year, Pittsburgh 98-64, the Cardinals 162. Pirates, the second best record in baseball.
Go back the last 3 years, plus these first 2 games, the Cardinals have won 287 ball games, and the Pirates now are 282. 1-2 in all of baseball.
Jaso with a fly ball out to right field. Backing up Piscotty at the wall, and it's off the top of the wall. Backing up Hazelbaker. Jaso to third. Relay is away from Carpenter, and Jaso will score. That ball gets away in the throw by Wong, and it's 2-0 Pittsburgh. The Cardinals, their second error in this game.
Kind of watching Carpenter, and you see him really kicking at the dirt. He's upset with himself that he was in an awkward position, couldn't keep that ball from going into the stands, allowing Jaso to get home plate.
He was initially with the throw off the bat.
Yeah, and I mean, he was kind of out of position. So it's one of those errors that goes to Wong, but it should not have gotten by Carpenter. This time, off the wall, out there, Piscotty has Hazelbaker backing up the play. He gets the carom, he gets it in. Look where Carpenter is. And so he's not at the bag, and that's how they get the run.
Piscotty near the sidewall, and it's out of play.
And here's the throw coming in. He's going to throw it right to the second base bag, but you see he was out in front, and the ball gets by him. And if you watch Carpenter, he's just kicking himself that he knew that he helped him get that extra run.
Now McCutchen, who is 1 for 2 with the run scored, 2-0 Pittsburgh.
Say Mike Leake has done a good job of minimizing the damage there in the first inning.
And a ground ball that's hit to Carpenter. First out here in the bottom of the fifth. He's approaching 90 pitches. Leake is due up second for the Cardinals in the top of the sixth.
Well, we know a lot of pitchers, though, Dan, would have had that disastrous 42-pitch first inning, and they would have been long gone by now. Leake's done his job of trying to keep this team in this game. They got to get some hitting shoes, though.
Hi, David.
Here's David Freese. Lined out to the track in right field, and Stephen Piscotty, first time up and grounded out to short. Hits it out of play. Boy, seeing David Freese again reminds me of just how well he goes the other way and hits with authority to right field.
Yeah, exactly right. You pitch him out that way, he'll go there. They're going to do it here.
1-2.
Good pitch. And then you think you can bust him inside and he can turn on that one. Or just have the ability to foul the pitch off.
1-2. Line to right center.
Good example of what we were talking about. Didn't quite get it in far enough inside, but he uses the hands, pulls him in, inside out's the ball, and shoots one to right field.
Marte has been on base twice. He was hit by a pitch and also singled to right.
I saw David Freese at Albert Pujols' Christmas party, and I thought he was in good shape at that time, and he's proven it now.
Marte has hit into 2 double plays in this series. Takes a low strike. Pitch number 93 coming up from Mike Leake. Cardinals with activity in their pen. That's Tyler Lyons. Hit the other way and out of play. 1-2. rather 0-2 on Marte.
We were a little surprised in yesterday's ball game that Tyler Lyons, who is said to be the long man, came in to relieve Waka, but got the 2 outs and didn't pitch longer. And he started that string of 18 outs in a row by the Cardinal bullpen.
He came in, he faced Polanco with 1 out, bases loaded, and Lyons got a line out that did bring a run home, which was charged to Michael Waka, and then got Harrison to line out to center as well. One-two is lined into center field. So 3 of the 4 that Leake has seen here in the 5th. Hard hit balls. Wednesday, April 13th, 30,000 fans entering with a ticket. Receive a poster celebrating the past 10 years at Busch Stadium 3. Courtesy of Shelter Insurance. Visit Cardinals.com/promotions for tickets. Announced today by the Cardinals that Paul McCartney is coming to Busch Stadium this summer.
August 13th. Yeah, August 13th. Sir Paul McCartney.
Francisco Cervelli. It's put on by the special events department of the Cardinals, and they are putting on an evening with Whitey Herzog coming up as well. We have those great nights with the Hall of Famers, and Whitey Herzog coming up in May. Get your tickets for that. Find out more at Cardinals.com/Whitey. Down on the field and a 90-minute Q&A. Everybody walks away with a signed Herzog ball. I'll be conducting that interview, Al, and I think all I need is maybe 3 questions to cover the 90 minutes. Am I about right?
Yes.
I can't wait.
He said he learned from Casey Stengel. You don't like the questions, you just keep on talking.
Keep talking.
You can control. You don't have to answer what he asks him. Just do what you want to do. But Whitey's still sharp as a tack. Loves watching Cardinal baseball, and he keeps up with baseball all around the game.
I was on the radio in St. Louis today, and Randy Carricker of ESPN Radio asked me about it. He said that he went to Jack Buck to go talk to Whitey about the 10-year anniversary of his tenure as manager, of being the Cardinals manager for 10 years. And all of a sudden he walked in and Jack said, "Whitey, 10 years. Tell us about it." He said it was 13 minutes and 40 seconds later they had their segment done. That's a base hit down the left field line. 1 run is in. Here comes another. Cervelli knocks in 2, and it's 4-0 Pittsburgh. That may knock out Mike Leake.
And see Mike Matheny coming here, part of a double switch. He'll go to the umpire first. Got Diaz going to shortstop. And at 99 pitches and 4 hits in this inning.
So a double switch coming up for the Cardinals, and that'll be it for Mike Leake in his Cardinal debut. Cervelli knocks him out with a double that plates 2. Chevy called for the pin. 4-0 Pittsburgh. He possesses. That's Tyler Lyons in our Hyundai pitch arsenal for the lefty.
I misspoke. It's Garcia out there at shortstop, not Diaz. They have missed Johnny Peralta both defensively and offensively. And Johnny, I saw Jim Leland, the former manager, saw him on opening day, and he told me to say hello to you and how much respect he has for you, and I told him I have the same for you also.
Is that right?
Absolutely.
What a nice man.
And I remember Leland was asked about Peralta, before he signed with the Cardinals, and he said, all I can tell you is somebody's going to get a heck of a ball player.
I remember him saying that too. And Tony even told us that too, because he had talked to Leland about Peralta, and he said, defensively, he'll hold his own, but you're going to love this guy's bat.
And we haven't had any problem with his defense,
nope.
And we do love his bat and him.
The pitch misses inside. 1 ball, 1 strike on Gregory Polanco, who has walked twice. One of those times with the bases loaded back in the first. And this is the scenario in terms of who Lyons faced first last night out of the pen. It was Polanco in the 5th, and here we are in the 5th, and he's facing Polanco again.
You don't like to see your long man come in the 5th inning if your stars will go deeper. But the one thing about Tyler Lyons is he could be a spot starter, be a long man, situational left-hander. But unlike, you don't need him, you can get the right-handed batters out, so you just don't have to have one batter.
Depending how things start to unfold here the next couple of innings, you may see Matt Bowman.
Oh, I think so. And Mike Matheny talked about it, that wasn't afraid to put him in that ball game, which was not the most opportune time, but we talked about it last night after the game. Is you really, in some ways, you do a kid a favor, bring him in at such a tight spot, because if he gets out of it, you say, wow, we got something.
Sure. So Lyons issues a walk to Polanco. That's the 4th walk the Cardinals have issued tonight. 3 by Mike Leake. This one by Lyons.
Had 3 walks to Polanco tonight.
Second baseman, Josh Harrison.
Brings in Harrison. 1 for 2. Well, the bullpens on both sides, Al, there's no doubting this. They've been really good.
They were number 1 and number 2 last year, doing a great job in the National League. And Pirates just a little bit better. Cardinals were more spectacular with retiring 18 in a row in the game last night, but they won.
And a ground ball. Can they turn 2? Out at second. The turn by Wong. Nicely done. Double play off the bat of Josh Harrison. What a turn by Colton Wong. We head to the 6th. Cardinals need some offense with just 1 hit tonight. Customers can get a free season-long subscription to MLB.TV Premium. Go to T-Mobile.com/MLB and sign up now and catch every moment on America's fastest-growing LTE network. The top of the 6th, 4-0 Pittsburgh. Cardinals trying to avoid a sweep at the hands of the Pirates.
Last time the Cardinals started out 0-2 was 2011. We know they won their 11th World Championship that year, so things are not as bleak as they could be.
So in talking with Hazelbaker, who tonight is 0 for 1, flied out to left, said, who's really helped you get to this spot? And he mentioned the name of Mike Shirley, who's a scout with the White Sox in his area where he grew up in Selma, Indiana. He said barrel positioning and his hands. They changed his hands, changed a little bit on the grip of the bat, and things started to take off. But he said the bottom line is, and he must have said it, Al, 2 or 3 times, just getting a chance to show what I can do. I finally feel I'm not blocked and I had a legitimate shot to make a club. And he got it and he made the most of it. Hits it the other way. 1 ball, 1 strike.
Right, you think about when you talk about being blocked, think of how many people a guy like Stan Musial blocked. Remember, he had 32 minor league teams back then, and there were some great ball players. I mean, we mentioned Joe Cunningham, and I know, you know, he was blocked at one time with Stan.
Even in recent Cardinal history, Molina, as long as he's been here now, at Pujols for a decade. Ozzie Smith for so many years at shortstop.
Sure. But the good thing is, if you got talent, keep on persevering like Hazelbaker has, you know, eventually you'll find a spot and maybe you can stick.
2-2, and he rips this out to deep right field. Will it carry out here? Goodbye, Jeremy Hazelbaker. First major league home run. All right.
He had 3 of them in spring training, led the ball club with 10 RBIs, and also has speed. Led the team in stolen bases in the spring. So that's one of the reasons it's intriguing to have him, because he has that combination of power and speed. He's 28. He's had all that time in the minor leagues and all those at-bats, and there's going to be some interesting phone calls. And hey, that's something we haven't seen enough of. Martinez with the shower at the end of the home run.
First career home run. Yesterday was his first major league hit, and now it's Greg Garcia. So what was it like yesterday in terms of getting back to the hotel, and how many text messages and voicemails did you have on your phone? He said, too many. He says just too many. It's overwhelming. Good for him. It's great to see, isn't it, when you see young guys that persevere like that?
Well, and you know, there's unfortunately in spring training, there's a lot of tough conversations you have with kids when you send them down. So every time you get a chance to have somebody like Hazelbaker and tell them the news, I mean, Mike Matheny had to be so happy for him, and there were a lot of tears shed when he told his teammates that he had made the big league club. He does that, we'll see a little more of him.
You bet. 0-2 the count on Garcia. Had 3 different stints with the club a year ago. And he's called out on strikes. That's 6 tonight for this right-hander, Ocasio. The home run, by the way, for Hazelbaker broke a string of 10 in a row. Back to the top of the lineup, and Matt Carpenter with 1 out, nobody on. 4-1 our score here in the top of the 6th. Carpenter, a 9-pitch at bat, first time up. Struck out And flied out to deep center back in the third, 0 for 2. It was a rough spring for Matt Carpenter. Hit around 170.
I was thinking the same thing. Had 1 home run, 2 RBIs, but a lot of times guys will be working on something.
Exactly.
And that's one of the bad things about so many games on television, because we don't get always that news or know what exactly they're working on, but it's being shown. And people start to get down on Carpenter. He's been too great of a hitter and player, but they're working on something. They try to flip the switch.
And he strikes out. 7 for Nicasio. What's on tap? Presented by Budweiser. Jaime Garcia, his season debut against Matt Whistler, will come your way at 6. It's the Cardinals and the Braves, and the final time will be at Turner Field in Atlanta. Braves will move to Cobb County. They've got a new ballpark going up, really a brand new complex even around the ballpark. The infrastructure is, Piscotty hits it out of play.
Metro Atlanta, I remember when I played there, we had Bob Horner lived north. Can't remember, one of the players lived south. There was 100 miles in between.
Wow.
So there's a lot of area for expansion out there in Cobb County.
It's slicing towards right. Polanco is there. And Piscotty, who is hitless in 3 plate appearances tonight. A bright spot, though, Jeremy Hazelbaker. In a moment he'll never forget the rest of his life. First ever Major League home run. 4-1 as we enter the bottom of the 6th. Of their downtown, and a look at the BJC Healthcare difference maker since 1996, and that's when Bill DeWitt and his group took over and gained ownership of the club from Anheuser-Busch. It has been a remarkable run. That's the BJC Healthcare difference maker.
Unprecedented. 13 out of those 20 years into postseason. You had the wild card in there and Central Divisions, but it's been phenomenal.
Second inning award for Tyler Lyons.
My way of thinking, Bill DeWitt Jr. and his ownership have been the best ownership in all of baseball. They've reinvested money that fans coming through the turnstiles, fiscally responsible. They don't make dumb trades or dumb moves at all. They just go out there and do a great job of signing, developing, and winning at the big league level.
Leadoff walk issued to Jordy Mercer. Well, you wonder, are you a little concerned? I get it. It's early. We're in game 3 of a long stretch run here, but the first 3 starters have given the Cardinals 14 2/3, 23 hits. That's Wainwright, Walker, and Leake here tonight. And then the amount of strikeouts is the Cardinals are closing in on 40 for 3 games.
Well, and also their defense hasn't been good. So we're not stealing any bases. It's station to station. There's not one aspect that is playing well right now, but we believe this team will be in the thick of things.
There's Sean Rodriguez. Had a nice conversation with Sean in the clubhouse of the Pirates today, and we talked about his dad, Johnny. And he's so proud of his dad, and I've talked to Johnny about his son, who feels the same way. And Johnny is the manager at State College, the Spikes, Class A for the Cardinals, and he said his dad loves the organization, loves working with young kids, and very nice young man, Sean Rodriguez. He's pinch hitting here for Nicasio.
He's been in all 3 games, but this is his first plate appearance.
Hits it down the left field line. It is hooking and off the base of the wall. Mercer on his way to third. They're going to wave him in. Relay to the plate. It is not in time. 5-1 Pittsburgh.
Well, Sean Rodriguez loves the Cardinal organization. He also loves Cardinal pitching. He's hit over 390 against St. Louis. He's now 14 for 35 against St. Louis pitching. And he's recognized as the best defensive player they have. Right. Their super utility player. You talk about dropping that bat head. Just a rocket down left field corner off the base of the wall, and he's out there with a double, and they pick up another run.
Top of the order, and here's Michael Morse, who will pinch hit for John Jaso. Morse was a pinch hitter against Rosenthal last night, struck out.
It's left-handed pitchers. Morse will be the platoon at first base.
It'd be interesting to see how they fit in David Freese to the plans here when Gung gets back. You know, does Gung play second base and get time there with Harrison to allow Freese to play? Does Freese play a little first base, which he did in spring training, which then that gives them 3 of them?
Yeah, well, I think that's a very nice problem to have.
Inside.
But Moore's big, strong guy. You know, I mean, you just look at him physically, and you have to be intrigued with him. But if he doesn't hit, then I think he being replaced by David Freese when Gung comes back.
Morse was traded from Miami to the Dodgers and then immediately flipped to the Pirates. And the Dodgers basically paying for the salary of Michael Morse.
Did a nice job as a pinch hitter, Morse did. He was 8 for 22, 364 with a home run last season as a pinch hitter. He had a good spring, hitting near 400. But he has holes in his swing.
In the air. Left field. Drifting back, Holiday on the track and makes the catch. Rodriguez tagging up from second to third.
Jordy Mercer trying to score here. Remember, Yachty's got to give him a lane. And before the new rules of catching right there, they'd probably throw him out because he'd be able to block the plate and seal it off.
That'll be it for Tyler Lyons. Cardinals will turn to Jonathan Broxton, and this is our Chevrolet call to the pen. Back with more in the bottom of the 6th in just a moment. '16 and older can take home a replica Yadier Molina home white jersey. It's a one-of-a-kind jersey. Features a special 10th anniversary Busch Stadium 3 patch, similar to the one that the team will wear the first homestand of 2016. You can find those tickets at cardinals.com/promotions. Handful of tickets remaining for opening day on Monday, so do that now if you're thinking about heading down to the ballpark on Monday. And that weekend will include the stadium giveaway, Molina jersey, and the Wainwright bobblehead. Broxton last night, as they're going to intentionally walk McCutchen, pitched the 8th.
I hate this. You know, you warm up as a reliever. You do get everything in your mind to do something positive, and the first thing they ask you to do is negative, to walk a batter. And if you're going to walk the batter, why didn't Tyler Lyons walk him instead of Broxton?
Can't disagree. This will be the 6th walk issued by the Cardinals, first intentional.
You know, sometimes, you know, strategy is you have to walk the first guy, but it's not McCutchen. You know you're going to face him either way.
Broxton last night was part of that string of 18 in a row set down by the Cardinals pen. He faced Cervelli, Polanco, and Harrison. Had a pair of flyouts and a strikeout. So they're trying to set up the double play here with Freese.
610 appearances for Broxton. 118 saves, 39 and 35 record.
And the first pitch is taken for a strike. The Cardinals have been out hit in this game 8-2. Freese singled and scored a run back in the 5th. Flied out to the track in right, and also grounded out to short. No balls, 2 strikes.
Broxton did a nice job for the Cardinals coming over from Milwaukee, the trade deadline. Got a 2-year contract, and we'll see a lot of him this summer. Still maintain that this Cardinal pitching staff, starters and relievers, have a chance to be better than they were last year, and they were great.
Here's an 0-2 pitch delivered by Broxton. Last night, if you look at it, It was a walk that came back to haunt Seth Maness. Had scored the winning run. And tonight, a bases loaded walk issued by Leake in the first. That led to a run. Lions in this inning walked Jordy Mercer to start play here in the bottom of the sixth, and that run has come around to score.
2 plays by the shortstop that were not made.
And a strikeout of Freese. Freese has had issues with this strike zone, and our home plate umpire tonight, Trip Gibson.
Base all 3 times.
12th plate appearance for the Pirates with a runner in scoring position. Marte with a pair of singles, a run scored, and was hit by a pitch. Back in the third. Runners at the corners. Two balls and no strikes. The issue that you have if you're the Cardinals is that you've got Watson out there, Caminero, and of course Melanson. And so you start thinking about shortening the games if you're the Pirates and just how good their bullpen is.
And Felice down there too.
Yep. The 2-0.
The Pirates this offseason spent 20% of their payroll on their bullpen. Lansing's final year making about close to $10 million.
They even looked at dealing him because of the money that was going his way. The Pirates payroll is at an even $100 million this year. Neil Huntington said he didn't get the offers that he likes, so bring him back. And why not?
You know, they felt like they had Tony Watson that could fill that spot, or Feliz now, but Lanson last year had 51 saves to lead the major leagues.
3 balls, 1 strike on Starling Marte. Runner from first off with this pitch. That's McCutchen. 3-2 the count with 2 outs. Moss will move behind McCutchen. Outfield is deep and straight away.
If he takes.
A 3-2 pitch. There goes McCutchen, and it's on the outside corner to strikeout for Broxton. Back-to-back Ks. Story tonight, the pitching of the Pirates and Juan Nicasio. His night is through. He was terrific. We head to the 7th. It's now up to the bullpen of the Pirates. It's 5-1. Cardinals hit a home run. The Gateway Honda dealers donate $1,000 to the Make-A-Wish Foundation. It'll be Holiday, Moss, Molina, Archimedes, Caminero, the hard-throwing right-hander for the Pirates, who's into the ballgame.
His debut this year, last night. Hard thrower, as you said. Retired the 3 batters he faced on just 7 pitches. He had career highs in every pitching category. Last year, spending his first full season at the major league level. Rodriguez is at first base.
The Pirates picked up Caminero for cash considerations. I mean, this is a guy that's throwing triple digits, and Miami essentially let him go.
That's hard to believe, isn't it? That
yeah.
Somebody that just look at that special arm and not want to hold on to him for something.
They've gotten him straightened out here.
Oh, yeah.
First pitch is in the dirt and to the backstop. Holiday tonight grounded out to short and also grounded back to the pitcher. Caminero pitched in the 6th last night. Scoreless inning with a strikeout.
Like you said, on 7 pitches. He was 5-1 last year in 73 games with a 3.62 ERA.
He was a rookie a season ago and led all rookie relievers in appearances and strikeouts.
6'4", 245.
Boy, what if Juan Nicasio turns out to be another one of those projects for the Pirates that turns out to be a weapon? I mean, on paper, you look at Liriano and Garrett Cole, you think, okay, those are the guys that lead this rotation. But if Nicasio can be what he was tonight, the Pirates may have something.
That's what they're banking on. Ray Surge would do his magic again, and it looked like it's worked in spring training and here again tonight.
A little bit low, and it's 3-2. Cardinals just 2 hits against Nicasio. He went 6 innings, gave up a run that was the home run by Hazel Baker, his first in the big leagues. He struck out 7, did not walk a man. 3-2 on Holiday. Big gap in left center. Strikeout of Holiday.
Just a pitcher's pitch right there. Matt tried to sell it as ball 4, but the catcher set up. Very little movement. Just you go either way, and it went Caminero's way. 9th strikeout tonight, or 8th strikeout.
Here's Moss. First pitch is a strike. The shift being used here. I'll ask you again, I know it's early, but how concerned do you get just watching this 3-game series with the Cardinals offense?
Well, I think you add to it the lack of starting pitching, the poor defense, no offense, all the strikeouts. One thing is you just don't want to hit the panic button. You got to wait and let them. You know, tomorrow's an off day. You know, get into a routine where you're playing a week or so. Get it out of your system. Come home, start, you know, have a winning season or a series in Atlanta. Get your jump start for a homestand. Always fun to see the first time Cardinals that break in camp and see what they experience home opening day.
2-2, slowly hit up the first base line. It's rolling, and it will be foul.
I guarantee you, Cervelli has rolled balls up the first base and third base line the way he's reacted to that. Of course, stayed fair for a long time, but he just waited and waited until it finally rolls into foul territory.
Two and two the count on Brandon Moss. The Cardinals came into the contest tonight. First two games having struck out 27 times. 8 more here tonight. I mean, 35 in 3 games. My goodness. The 2-2. Moss rips it to Rodriguez, and everything going the Pirates' way.
Guarding the line, the glove almost in foul territory, takes a step up, pops it up, and easily catches it. Super sub, and they say wherever you put him defensively, he's going to be the best player. And he hits the Cardinals. He must not hit against anybody else.
Here's Yadier Molina. 1 point. Nicasio set down 10 in a row until the home run hit by Hazelbaker. Molina tonight 0 for 2. He's flied to left and also grounded out to second.
And that's alarming about the Cardinal offense was last year they set a record for strikeouts. It was their Achilles heel last season. They just had historic pitching that allowed them to win 100 games, and he was only scoring right at 4 runs per game.
Molina with a fly ball out to left field. Starling Marte. Well, sometimes you have to have a little luck in this game too. The case here for Sean Rodriguez. Takes a hit away from Moss. Time to stretch. Yellowwood bringing the lumber. That was John Jaso. A triple and air led to a run. It was off of Mike Leake. Went 4 in the third. Gave up 7 hits and 4 runs. I think if you add the eyeliner to John Jaso, you'd have Johnny Depp, and he truly would be a pirate of the Caribbean.
Oh,
he's got the hair.
Goes along with our offense.
Some changes for the Cardinals. And this is Matt Bowman making his major league debut. And it's a strike in his first pitch in the big leagues.
He's 24 years of age. Late May, he'll turn 25. Chevy Chase, Maryland. Went to Princeton University. He was signed out of the Mets organization. Last year, the Mets organization, he was 7 and 16, I believe. But the thing is he's a ground ball specialist. And you got to understand, in Las Vegas, that is like a shooting gallery there. That's almost impossible to judge pitchers because of the rarefied air and the way the ball flies. But this kid is intriguing. They like him. He's a ground ball specialist. Gets 64% of his pitches are ground balls.
Matt Bowman, welcome to the big leagues with a strikeout. Plaza Tire Fox Tracks. Let's take a look.
Hides the ball. You see the sinking action there. That'll get a lot of ground balls, but there he gets the first strikeout. Cervelli with that ball.
I talked for a long time during the workout the other day with Bowman, and he told me that his nerves have been under control. He's ready for this. He's ready to go. He said Tyler Lyons and some of the other guys have really calmed him down. He was a starter, but last year he had 2 relief appearances. As you mentioned, he's a sinker baller and a strike thrower. And what's interesting is that, as you said, Al, he graduated from Princeton. He was drafted out of Princeton after his junior year. There's your ground ball. Hit towards second. And Wong can't come up with it. The third error on the Cardinals tonight.
Both they're going to try and slow things down. Second error on him. See the ball comes up and hits him in the heel of the glove. Ejects. First error I didn't think he deserved, but that one he does.
Here's Josh Harrison. Hit into a double play, also singled and lined out. Bowman's degree is in economics. Had to write a junior paper. He did that. He's a huge baseball fan, whether or not he was playing. And his junior paper was on dynamic pricing and ticket sales across Major League Baseball. And he said, you know, it was really interesting, Dan, because the Cardinals were at the forefront of this and really did a great job with the Giants, too. So he starts telling me about dynamic pricing. I said, what else you got for me? Here's a ground ball. Tough to turn 2 and only 1. His senior thesis was on free agency contracts in baseball, predicting war and predicting injuries of players.
Wow.
Very bright guy. Had to go back to school for a couple of different years just to finish up that senior year.
Well, we talked about ground ball, over 64 or 63% ground ball ratio. Had a career high 19 double plays. That tied 4th in the Pacific Coast League last season. And he induced 40 over his last 3 seasons of professional baseball. They like him as a reliever, not as a starter. And of course, being a Rule 5 player, he has to stay on the 25-man roster the entire year. Are being offered, have to clear waivers. It's not always easy to take a Rule 5 player on a contending team. But if he can get ground balls and has the composure, I think he can fit.
Only a handful of players have made it from Princeton to Major League Baseball. Will Venable being one, Chris Young. About 6 total. Bowman would make number 7, I believe. I said, so you predict free agent contracts. I said, how much money are you going to make? He said, I don't want to think about it. He said, let me get in the game first.
Be very happy with $507,500 the first year.
0-2 the count on Josh Harrison. He was also a two-way player while playing at Princeton. He was a shortstop and their pitcher, and he said a lot of times, he said, my development, my growth was stunted because I was studying. He said the idea was to get a degree, and I wasn't heavily recruited coming out of high school. He said he looked at Georgetown. He said he probably could have walked on at Stanford. Ivy League schools were looking at him. And he said, you know, where most guys around the country that play Division I baseball are dedicated to that and their classwork, but he said it's a little different, obviously, in an Ivy League school. So his preparation, his training, if you will, was stunted. And so now he's finally in the big leagues. And what a story. And here it is. Here's your double play. Or rather ground out to end that inning for Bowman. Potential double play on the ground ball before. Nice debut for Matt Bowman. How about the debut of Bowman?
I thought it was very efficient. Got the ground balls that we saw. He got a strikeout. Was able to pitch around the air. Very comfortable out there.
Sure did.
And you hear his background, I would think that pitching here tonight might be a little easier than some of those economic tests he took.
Caminero.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, that's not
Look
good.
at a blister or something.
Medical team taking a look at Bowman. That's all they need.
Oh. He's probably going to stay in this ball game.
Wong is 1 for 2 tonight. Single to center field and also grounded out. The 2-0 pitch. Three and one. There's no activity right now in the Cardinals pen as Bowman was going back, it looks like, to the clubhouse with the medical team. Full count on Wong. Nicasio went 6 innings, gave up a run, and now Caminero in his second inning of work, he had a 1-2-3 7th. Hey, Cardinal fans, if you can't watch the games on TV, you can now stream games live on your mobile device. Just go to your app store, download the free Fox Sports Go app, log in, stream the Cardinals wherever you go. First walk the Cardinals have been issued tonight. Now Matt Adams.
It's only down by 4 runs. Get back in this one.
Adams filled in for Pham, his spot in the lineup on opening day. One and one the count.
Got the shift on. Need base runners.
Just wonder how tough it's been for Adams to get into a rhythm. Plate appearances being split with Holiday and Moss spring training. Did try to go to the backfields a couple of different times and face live pitching.
Dan, that's the tough thing for Adams because he only plays one position. Where now Holiday can play first and left. Moss can play the outfield and first.
2 balls, 1 strike. Short lead at first by Colton Wong. The next to Adams.
Very simple though. If you hit, you're going to play.
Yep. The 2-2 in the dirt. Left-hander Watson is up and throwing for the Pirates in their pen. A 3-2 pitch. Ripped down the right field line and foul. Watson pitched in the opening game and in game 2.
Pitched in the 7th inning of both of those, but normally you always think of him as the 8th inning setup man to Melanson. First game he had 3 straight left-handers in the 7th, and then yesterday he had 2 of the 3 batters in the left-handed.
3-2. Most strikeouts all time by a Cardinals team in a 3-game series against the Pirates was 32. And now it stands at 35 and a new record. Not one they won.
No.
32 was back in May of 2012.
All time for any 3-game series was set last year at Cleveland with 40. And then you have 4 other games in the history of the Cardinals where they struck out 36 times. Make it 5 times. Backdoor breaking ball catches the outside part of the plate. And that's a 9th strikeout and the 36th strikeout of this 3-game series.
Second strikeout for Caminero. Here's Hazelbaker. Homered back in the 6th. The Cardinals with just 2 hits tonight. A single by Wong to center field in the 2nd inning. And a solo home run by Hazelbaker. That was in the 6th. Little bouncer, could be 2. A flip to short. Oh, what a play. It's a double play. Harrison, a flip out of the glove to shortstop Jordy Mercer and on to first.
Amazing challenge.
And they are going to challenge this play as to whether or not Hazelbaker beat it out at first base.
Sure looked like he did. And you haven't missed anything. Here you see that little flip, standing flat-footed Mercer, so he had nothing on the throw. And it looked like Hazelbaker, who can run, beats it out. Definitely. What are they looking at?
This is where I am in complete agreement with you. That last replay clearly shows he's safe.
You know what? The only thing we saw Clint Hurdle talking to the umpires, and he might have been questioning whether the slide was he veered a little bit in towards the shortstop. And I mean, if that's it, we're going to add even more controversy to the rule. And I would have to say I agree with most people that needs a little tweaking. Got to use a little common sense.
It reminds me of when baseball went to the catch rule and had to extract it out of the glove and show it, where common sense on some of those plays, you knew it was a catch.
Yeah, and I think that's what it was, that because he looked at. But watch Wong. Now, does he alter his path a little bit? You know, he does go a little bit towards.
Wong is safe at second base too. So
I like that.
We're going to have Wong just ran out to second base.
Now they're sitting.
Initially, there was a umpire that did point to first and said safe. Then he said safe at second. So that's why Wong went out there, but he is out.
That really was going to confuse me if he was safe. But by the definition, you know, he did kind of alter his path and did not slide directly into the second base bag. But we all know that these guys have been taught that.
Garcia lines it down the right field line, and it's off that chain link fence. Hazelbaker will be held up at third. And Garcia has his first hit of 2016. And now things get a little interesting.
They did
go with Watson now to face Matt Carpenter.
Yeah, you had Watson warming up. And you're down by 4, so he's going to take off. He's got 2 outs here. Pick up his third base coach, and you got to just play it safe right now. So slow walk by Clint Hurdle.
Al, the byproduct too, and you know it, having been a pitcher for a decade and a half in the big leagues, during that replay, he's just standing out there, and that's not an easy thing to do, all of a sudden get it geared back up. I'll talk more about it when we come back. Chevy called to the pen. Here comes Watson. So the Cardinals challenged on the play at first base. Call was overturned. Then it was a crew chief review on the slide of Colton Wong. So they looked at that to make sure that was okay, and it was. And then Caminero is just out there standing and waiting to throw.
Yeah, it's especially with so many of your relievers are 1-inning relievers now. Nick Caminero was in his 2nd inning, but remember they all come off the field, or at least start off there, so he thinks he's out of the game. And then you restart the engine, he gets in trouble.
This turns out to be a big at bat here for the Cardinals. And it's Matt Carpenter, who was struck out twice. Fly to deep center. He's 2 for 14 against this tough lefty. 3 games between these two teams, and Watson has been in all 3.
He's got a 1.59 ERA since 2013 All-Star break, lowest among major league pitchers.
That will find the seats out of play to the left side.
So far in the early going, Cardinal hitters are 1 for 6 off of Tony Watson.
Kevin Segris begins to throw in the Cardinals pen.
Get a little closer, maybe you take Bowman out. The Cardinals look like they might get back in it. Let's take the lead this inning.
1 ball, 1 strike, 2 outs, 2 on. Carpenter, a ground ball to second. It's bobbled. Harrison stays with it. Cardinals strand 2. That was their first plate appearance with a runner in scoring position tonight. It stays 5-1 Pittsburgh. Baseball on Fox Sports Midwest is brought to you by Budweiser. This Bud's for you. Very breezy night here in the Steel City, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. The banks of the Allegheny at PNC Park. We've seen a debut of Matt Bowman. We saw a couple of major league hits yesterday. First time ever for Hazel Baker, and Diaz. First home run for Hazel Baker came tonight. And there's a strike by Bowman.
Well, we hope the Cardinals come back in this ball game, but tomorrow is a mandatory off day, and I think it's definitely needed. Just a mental rest for these guys.
It's been a tough series, any way you want to look at it.
Well, you know, the Cardinals, if you just look at the history, you know, they dominate the Pirates in St. Louis. The Pirates now, last 3 years, are dominating here.
1 ball, 2 strikes.
And you expect these two teams to be battling all season long with the Cubs. Very competitive division.
Well, Bowman in that first inning pitched as advertised. Strike thrower and ground balls. Got 3 ground balls and a strikeout back in the 7th. Wong committed the error. The Cardinals have committed 3 tonight.
And you were down there all spring, but I don't remember Bowman.
I saw him a couple of times, and he got roughed up.
But I mean, well, he did early.
Yeah.
And then he got better as time went along, but did you see him go 2 innings down there? We talked about relievers doing 2 innings, but nobody did.
Yeah, I did not.
Now, I think in this game, he has to know, and if he's Princeton grad, you know, he's going to know that he's going to be in this game more than likely more than 1 inning.
Sean Rodriguez doubled first time up and takes a pitch inside, so a walk. First base runner allowed by Bowman. Well, fans, next time you want to grab seats to a Cardinals game, get the StubHub app. Not only will you find seats you'll love, whenever you want, you can find the best seat for your buck when you sort by the best value. So get the StubHub app today. To be Matt Joyce, so left on the bench is Cole Figueroa and also Chris Stewart, the backup catcher for Clint Hurdle's club. 3rd time we've seen Joyce being used as a pinch hitter in this series.
Minor league free agent, signed this year, homered 4 times in the last 10 spring training games.
It's now 7 walks, 1 intentional issued by the Cardinals tonight.
Just everything's out of sync. There's no other way to say it. Joyce spent last season with the Angels after spending 6 straight years with Tampa Bay. Going to play for Clint Hurdle. He uses his whole roster, doesn't he?
Sure does. That was also part of the studies that they had looking at their team, that they told him you need to get rest for your starters, not just the pitchers, but the starters in general. And you buy innings throughout the year. Once a week, a guy gets a day off, maybe 2. And it's proven in their philosophy that you do that, players stay healthier, and they're also more apt to be sharp by the end of the season.
Think about this. When you see a manager that was a regular player, Matheny was, Dusty Baker, guys like that, you know, they're gonna play their regulars maybe too much, or they will disagree with what you just said. But guys like Clint Hurdle, who were bench guys, Whitey Herzog, you know, they utilize their entire roster. And you always used to see Whitey have this Sunday Scrabini squad. You know, the bench guys, they were thrilled to death. But knowing that they had to get 3 or 4 at bats at least once a week so they could do their job coming off the bench as a pinch hitter.
The 2-2 and a shift for Joyce and a called 3rd strike.
But it's hard a lot of times for, you know, a player who turns manager that was an everyday player, and they kind of ride their thoroughbreds.
Makes all the sense in the world, doesn't it?
It does.
Bowman is the fourth pitcher used by the Cardinals tonight. Began with Mike Leake. He went 4 1/3 if you just joined us. Then it was Lyons, Broxton, and now Bowman in his second inning of work. Here's McCutchen. Been on base twice with a single and a walk. A little cut there. You've seen the right-handers give up on it. Joyce gave up on it.
Yeah.
From the left side. Late movement.
You like what you're seeing, you know, and then you look at his pedigree of all the ground balls. He's got a couple strikeouts. Everything else has been staying on the ground.
Here's an 0-1 pitch.
You just hope a young kid like this, you know, gets off to a good start, builds a little confidence, feels like he belongs here, and then he could be one of those Rule 5s that can help a contending team.
Ripped to short and into left center. Over Garcia. And runners at the corners as Rodriguez had to wait and hold to make sure that that got through.
Rocket off the bat on McCutchen. The second hit of the night.
I'm not sure if this got over Garcia or just through Garcia.
We are so high. I was wondering the same thing, whether we'll get a chance to see it here. I thought that it was questionable whether that one should have been caught. It is the big leagues. It was a rocket.
Now David Freese. This kind of pitcher could play into the hands of David Freese. That late movement cuts it to the outside portion of the plate, and David just goes right with it. Also, though, flip side of that, rolls over and gets a ground ball double play.
Yeah.
Back to Bowman. Fires to second. It's a double play. 1-4-3 on the double play. 2 scoreless innings in the major league debut of Matt Bowman here in Pittsburgh. He's in the pen for the Pirates. Here's Corey Lukey. Lupke will come in, and leadoff man will be Stephen Piscotty. It's 5-1 at Pittsburgh.
Lupke has not pitched in the big league since April 27th of 2012. Missed 2013 and 14 seasons after having a pair of Tommy John surgeries. Was on the opening day roster 3 times with San Diego, or this would be his 3rd. San Diego in 11 and 12. Signed a minor league free agent contract with the Pirates in February.
Piscotty leads it off. We're in the 9th. 5-1 Pittsburgh. 0 for 3 tonight. Fly to left. Lined out to right. Also was called out on strikes. Juan Nicasio went 6 innings tonight for Pittsburgh. 2 hits, gave up a run, struck out 7 tonight. The Cardinals have struck out 9 times this evening. Well, the Cardinals might beat any team in an ACT. Piscotty with Stanford. You got Bowman from Princeton. Here's a 1-2. Boy, you hear about it more and more. Guys that come back from not just 1 but 2 Tommy John surgeries. Take the ligament from the other wrist, or maybe even the hip area. As Piscotty fights it off, but lines out for the first out. This copyrighted telecast is presented by the authority of the St. Louis Cardinals and may not be reproduced or retransmitted in any form. And the accounts and descriptions of this game may not be disseminated without the express written consent of the St. Louis Cardinals.
Was it Harvey that they took a ligament out of his leg?
Right.
And like figured it'd be twice as strong. It's coming out of his arm. Longer, double wrapped it.
It's amazing.
I can remember watching Tommy John throw on the side after he's come back from his Tommy John surgery. And I thought he was kidding himself. He had the claw hand. You know, you atrophy in the hand, and he'd catch the ball, have to take his glove off, stuff it in his pitching hand, put the glove back on, throw a pitch.
And he pitched for a long time after that.
Yeah, and was very effective. He never was a real hard thrower, but he learned to deal with it. You know, it used to be the common denominator was everybody threw hard, and you didn't start developing breaking pitches until you hurt your arm. Where it's so much different now, where these kids all come up with outstanding off-speed stuff, and then they're bigger, stronger. What they put them through, you know, preventative medicine.
Remember the last at bat for Holiday, he was called out on strikes back in the 7th and had words with the home plate umpire. He thought this was ball 4.
He thought right. But he's still up there.
Let's turn to our Budweiser player of the game. Juan Nicasio, the starter for the Pirates. 6 innings, 1 run, 2 hits, 7 strikeouts, gave up the home run to Jeremy Hazelbaker. He's your Budweiser player of the game.
Looked pretty good out there. No walks was a big factor. Striking out people, throwing strikes, keeping 2 hits, just the Hazelbaker home run.
Here's Randall Grichuk. Pinch hitter for Bowman. So Bowman makes his major league debut in 2 scoreless innings here tonight.
That was very impressive. Pitched around an error. A couple strikeouts. Everything else was basically, gave up the one hit, the rocket off the bat of McCutchen, but everything was on the ground, and finally did get that ground ball double play to get out of it.
0-2 the count on Randal Grichuk.
Liked what I saw, and I liked his mannerisms on the mound.
0-2 pitch. Left on the bench for the Cardinals, Diaz, and the backup catcher, Eric Fryer. Cardinals perspective, that's one of the stories tonight. Hazel Baker and his home run. That's about it.
See if Grichuk can't get off the do something positive here and kind of get good feeling, enjoy the off day, and come out ready to swing the bat in Atlanta.
1-2 pitch inside. Did have a single in the first game that snuck under the glove of Mercer. The thing about Grichuk, though, Al, he's going to strike out.
Yes.
I mean, that's part of what he has at this level: power and strikeouts.
It's just can you have enough production to live with the strikeouts? As you see their closer, Melanson up.
The 2-2. And the Cardinals are down to their final out.
.37 strikeouts, 3-game series, second all-time high for a 3-game series in strikeouts.
On their feet here in Pittsburgh. Ball 1 to Yadier Molina. Molina is grounded out to second. Twice he is flied out to left. Molina, base hit into right. Extends the ball game to Colton Wong.
Never know.
This will be only the second time the Cardinals have had a runner in scoring position.
It's a save situation, so he's going to go bring his closer in. Third game in a row.
So we step aside. It'll be our Chevy call to the pen. Melanson, the outstanding all-star closer and performer for the Pirates, in the back end of their pen, coming on when we come back. enters tonight's action with 100 saves as a member of the Pirates. Of course, last year, 51 in 2015.
And led the major leagues. That's his third appearance, but this is his first save situation. I wonder here if there's a time limit now as to you come in from the bullpen, or it looked like the home plate umpire was saying you got one more pitch. He was trying to say, well, I got more than that, but the clock may have dictated that he's allotted took too much time getting in from the bullpen. So came in on Sunday. It was a non-save situation. Closed it out. He pitched the 9th inning yesterday. Cardinals are 3 for 9 off him in the first 2 games, and down by 4. But you know, you count the man at the plate, and the on-deck hitter would represent the tying run. So it is a save situation.
Two runners on, and Colton Wong at the plate.
And 7 scoreless appearances in the spring.
First pitch to the Cardinals' second baseman. Strike one. Wong, a single to center, grounded out sharply to second, also walked back in the 8th. The 0-1. Now 0-2, and Wong didn't like it.
Just relax. Colton has a tendency to worry about things, grind so hard. Just relax, let it happen.
One ball, 2 strikes. Wong, left side, free, sliding forward, shovel pass. And a force play at second, and the Pirates have a sweep to begin 2016 over the St. Louis Cardinals.
Well, mandatory off day tomorrow, and maybe that's what the Cardinals need. Just relax a little bit, have some fun in Atlanta, then come home for a great home opener, and then we start really officially saying our season has started.
Tough way to start this season for the St. Louis Cardinals. It's off to the postgame show. Plenty of looks at the first Major League home run of Jeremy Hazelbaker. You'll hear from Mike Matheny and the players. All the stats and highlights are on Major League Baseball. Comes your way next on the postgame show.